Hey y'all, this is Santasha. So I still got my pre-poo in, but I told y'all I was gonna clip my ends, and I don't think I ever did an end trimming, trimming my ends, clip the ends type video. So that's what I'm gonna do for y'all right now. And what I like to do when I trim my ends, it varies whether I do it on wet hair or dry hairs, and you'll decide which one you want to do. And so my hair is pretty much dry. It just has the oil on it. And what I like to do is, it's already sectioned off. I've already finger detangled it because it has the Vatican oil for my pre-poo on it. And when it comes to the number of sections I put on my hair, it really just depends on how detailed I want my trim to be. If it's kind of just brushing up my ends, I'll do it in big twists. But if I want it pretty detailed, I try to slice them as small as I can without, twisting my whole head. So what I do is, I do mine while it's twisted. Because, with curly, kinky hair, it's not as simple when you're doing it with straight hair. Some people blow dry their hair, and that's when they do their trims. But I like to twist my hair. So you see, I just twisted my hair. And when you're twisting your hair, when you get to the very end, how you really know if it's time for your ends to be trimmed is when you get right about here. You're twisting. You're twisting, right? Twisting. Still the same density. You can still feel that same thickness. And then when you get like right about here, like for me, mine is right here. So when I get right here and it's super thin, you can feel the difference in the texture. So that is what I'm going to clip. That little piece right there. That is the trimming part that I'm clip. So when it gets super skinny, like, that's what I'm going to clip right there. That's it. That's how I'm going to trim my ends. And remember to use hair cutting shears. You can get them from anywhere. You can get them from the dollar store. You can get them from Family Dollar, or you can go to the Sally's and get actual hair cutting shears. But do hair cutting shears, not scissors. Not your arts and crafts scissors. And try to put your scissors in a place. Like I keep mine in my hair comb bucket. My bucket with all my combs and things. Because you don't want to cut anything but hair with your scissors. Because what happens to the scissors, they'll still be like razor sharp. You like, oh, let me get my hair cut scissors. They'll cut through anything. They'll still be razor sharp, but they'll develop these little ridges in them. And then that's the part that doesn't help your hair, because that little ridge or whatever is what is unhealthy for your hair. And that's why you want to stick to the shears. So that's all I'm gonna do. I just wanted to share that with y'all. So like I said, like on this section, I'm gonna take it and divide it into half, then I'm gonna twist it, and then I'm gonna do the same thing as far as clipping my ends. And remember how, like I said, the more you divide these sections and twist it, and the more detailed your trimming will be. So the best time might even be when you're doing you're doing your mini twist, or you're doing a whole head full of twists. That would be your best time. And like I say, you can feel when it's time, where to clip the ends at. When it gets really tapered, really skinny towards the very bottom, that's the part you want to clip. And trimmings, you can do them anywhere from every 6 to 8 weeks, or you don't have to do it every 6 to 8 weeks. Just monitor your hair when you're doing these twists. Monitor when that hair is getting really skinny at the end. And even if you have finer hair, it's still going to be much thinner, much skinnier at the very tip where you need to clip that end off. Snip. So that's all I wanted to share with y'all. That would be my hair trimming video. And I'm just going to do this across my whole head. And remember, you just really need to be careful about who you listen to on YouTube, about how often you should get a trim. Everybody has their story, but you know, I did actually go to cosmetology school, and that's kind of what I learned, to trim your ends every 6 to 8 weeks is what they teach you. And but everybody will vary. There will be some people who won't need a trimming every 6 to 8 weeks. Some people can go to 3 or 4 months, because you know what, there's always a book description and there's always your description. Let's take blood pressure. The book says your blood pressure should be 120/80. But there are some of us who are 110/60. That's a good blood pressure. Don't go and look at the book and say, oh no, my blood pressure is bad because I'm 110/60. So the same thing with hair trimming. If you're trimming your hair a little less often than 6 to 8 weeks, that's your hair. You might not need a trim. So remember, when you're watching these videos, remember, everybody has the book reason, the book norm. The way I like to do it, because you know I'm a EMT and a medical technician with the Air Force Reserves. So what I like to always, the way I like to think about it to keep myself centered is say, as the book norm, and then every individual has their norm. So when it comes to trimming your ends, the book norm says you should trim your ends every 6 to 8 weeks, but your hair has its own normal, so it may not be every 6 to 8 weeks. It may be longer, or it may be shorter. I've heard some people say, trim your ends every 4 weeks. You know, I don't agree with that, but that's your hair. I don't know what your hair needs. But so, you know, and you know, trimming the ends depend on the care and the maintenance of your hair. If you're putting some really good stuff in your hair to help keep those ends nice and strong, you might not be needing to clip your ends every 4 weeks or to clip your ends every 6 to 8 weeks. You may not need that. Hey y'all, it's me. I'm still working on the back of my hair, trimming my ends. But one thing I wanted to add that came to mind is when you do trim your ends and you do have twists, 2-strand twist or whatever kind of style you rocking, it does look much neater. You know, it does look much neater. That's just like trimming your ends and being relaxed. The same thing for when you're relaxed or straight hair. Trimmed ends do look much neater. So, you know, and I've seen some situations where I've seen young ladies, especially relaxed straight hair ladies, you know, they need to clip them ends, but they don't clip the ends, because if they clip the ends, they cutting off some length. But remember, if you don't trim your ends and you do have split ends, a split end starts at the end, but if you don't care for it, it goes up. So remember how I say you twist down, and when it gets to that really thin point or kind of weak spot, you know, you can tell the difference in the density of the hair. The longer you go without a good trim, that little weak thin spot is going to climb higher and higher. So that's why you really want to get your trims, because you don't want your ends to have to, you know, to keep coming up, because then you're going to be giving yourself, you won't be trimming your ends at that point. At that point, you're going to be giving yourself a haircut, because that's what you're going to need. So I'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.